Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. Today I'm speaking with Alex Andon of Jellyfish Art, and we're going to talk about his new jellyfish startup, kind of how he got started and what he's got going on, and just some of his general tips that he has for hardware startups. So Alex, thanks for chatting with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So give us the 30-second pitch. What is Jellyfish Art? What is it that you guys do?
So we basically started off, we saw how popular jellyfish exhibits were in public aquariums over the past 10, 15 years, and they require special tank design so they don't get sucked into the filters. And they didn't just like them, they were obsessed with jellyfish. So we came up with the tank design, started selling the tanks and the live jellyfish as pets online, and it just took off from there.
So how long has your startup been around? Because you started refabbing existing aquariums.
Yeah, in one capacity or another, it's been around for a long time. But I'd say we really got our start with Kickstarter in October of last year, of 2011, which is where we launched our new desktop jellyfish tank that we were manufacturing to the public. And it was one of their top campaigns and did really well.
Which is awesome. Yeah, I checked it out. It was huge, right? Like you were trying to raise a couple thousand and you raised like 100
Yeah,
something.
yeah. It was great.
Which is awesome. So like Kickstarter was your main source of funding for your new prototype, I take it?
Yeah, definitely. Kickstarter's ideal because, I mean, the hardest thing about getting a hardware product off the ground is meeting minimum order quantities from the factories. And you need to get those quantities in order to get your manufacturing costs down. And you're small and you have a lot of money, so it's this impossible gap to bridge. And Kickstarter just solves it. You put up your idea. If people, back it, not only are they saying, yes, we want to buy this product, but they are buying it. They're putting the cash up front. And then you go to the factory, you build it, you give it to them, and you're off and running.
And there's a lot less risk, right? Because if you don't meet your minimum goals, nobody gets charged on Kickstarter, right?
Right, exactly. So you could conceivably just pitch a product, and if it doesn't work out, you find something new.
So you were only trying to raise a little bit of money on Kickstarter, and then you raised a whole lot. What did that let you do that you weren't expecting, or that did it really compress your timeline, or did it let you ramp up really quickly? Like, what did that let you do?
Yeah, it just let us grow really quickly. It got us great exposure, so we immediately lined up a lot of great deals with some retailers who ended up carrying the product, and just having all that inventory allowed us to kind of like ramp up the operating foundation as well.
So how many prototypes did you go through? Because you went from existing aquariums to a state-of-the-art custom jellyfish aquarium. How long did that take? What was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, countless prototypes. The prototyping process is it takes a long time. And you can very quickly get a very basic working design, but working out all the little kinks and details takes a frustratingly long amount of time. So that whole process of product design was probably about a year.
Because you're not only making a working model, you have to make something that can be manufactured at a
Right.
reasonable cost, right? I mean, is that
Right, exactly. So you're not just finding something that works, you're finding something that can be mass manufactured, like you said, and looks good and has a low error rate in manufacturing, etc. And a year actually isn't that bad for product design. It's
I was gonna say
relatively
that
fast.
seems fairly quick.
Yeah, I was in a rush. Always am.
Can't blame you. So your background's biology, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of marine biology in
Did
college.
that prepare you for this hardware startup? Was there stuff that you had to learn as you go? You like, all of a sudden you're building something.
Oh, I didn't know it. I didn't know a damn thing. I literally started with just like a back of the napkin sketch, and I still have it on my computer. And we just went from there. And it was a lot of work with the factory, so working directly with the factory helped a lot because you're talking directly to the people who are going to be making it, and they know, and they were not afraid to give input. So they said, no, have you considered doing it this way because that'll be a lot easier and simpler, etc.
So how did you learn the things that you needed to learn? Like you're going through this process, you're building these prototypes.
Mhm.
Was it the factory was helping you out? Was it you had friends who had experience? How did you get the skill sets as you needed them to actually make this thing work?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same you do with any other startup. You just like hustle and find friends who might know something or know someone who knows something. Just ask around. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, take a lot of risks for sure, but just try to learn as much as you can as you go. And it was definitely, I mean, a nerve-wracking process, but
Yeah,
it worked out well.
I can't imagine. So where did you find this factory? Was it like Thomas Register or one of those sites? Was it like a friend introduced you?
Alibaba is actually a great resource.
Oh, okay.
And we had someone over there in China where they're made helping to find the factory and talk to them. And then ultimately I went there and made sure that, it wasn't just a guy with a laptop scamming us.
So, and you start working with them after Kickstarter? So after you had all these funds, that was when you started this whole process, or was that before?
No, we were working with them beforehand.
Okay.
Because it definitely, Kickstarter moves really quickly, and those people, as soon as they get their money in, they want that product. So, and manufacturing takes a long time too. So we were already working with the factory quite a bit before we did Kickstarter.
Okay, and were they pretty receptive to lower order quantities? Was that something that they were okay with, and they saw the potential, or they were really well suited for small order quantities?
Yeah, I think we got pretty lucky with the factory. They were kind of a perfect size, like small enough that they paid a lot of attention to us and were willing to do smaller order quantities, but big enough that they can scale with us.
Okay, very cool. So, when you were building your prototype, did you use like a tech shop or a maker space, or was it your garage and somebody's
Actually,
power tools?
since I didn't really I wasn't a hardware person or a product designer or anything and didn't really know much about it. I really left it up to other people. So I found a local, really awesome like old plastics shop with these guys who've just been doing it for like 40 years and know everything there is to know about plastic, and like don't have a website or email address, that kind of thing. And those guys were great for prototyping locally. And then once we got to a certain stage, we would start sending the prototypes back and forth to the factory so they could fine tune it.
Okay, so you did all of that in a year. I mean, it was outsourcing the prototype, manufacturing's overseas, and you're shipping all this stuff.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because you don't need to have a background in hardware. I mean, your background's in biology, which is where the jellyfish comes into play. But
right.
It's like you kind of outsource that, and it didn't cost a huge bajillion sum of money. It was doable for your budget.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed expensive at the time because we just bootstrapped this business, but in retrospect, it's one of the cheapest product development projects I've ever heard of. So we really like bootstrapped it and did it on the cheap.
And were you still altering existing aquariums at this time too? So you're sort of doing the same thing?
Yeah, that helped a lot too, and that was like a really like, in retrospect again, like really clever way to get off the ground was we basically took another company's tank and retrofitted it for jellyfish, and we were selling that online. So we had this existing business supporting our development costs, and that definitely helped. And then so you're with a new product, you're bridging this gap between like what can I make and what does the market want.
Right.
And so we'd solved one problem. We knew the market wanted this, at least to some extent. So then we just had to figure out a better way to make like a new product and then connect the two.
Yeah, because like you know that people want jellyfish tanks because they're already buying them from you. So you just have to figure out, okay, how do I make it a lot easier to do so I'm not sitting there altering tanks, which was great. And then not only that, you're proving the market, but they're paying you for this. So
and the like age-old catch-22 with new products, new hardware products at least, is you need to figure out whether there's a market that'll buy this product, but you can't figure that out unless you have the product, and you can't manufacture the product unless you have a huge market that's willing to place huge orders. So it's this horrible catch-22 that I don't think was really attacked at all until Kickstarter, and Kickstarter is definitely taking a huge dent out of it, and I think a lot of other startups and new technologies will help too.
Which is huge.
Like, rapid 3D printing and tech shop and all this stuff, they're all chipping away at this horrible catch-22 that's been plaguing us forever.
Seriously. So what did you learn about Kickstarter? I mean, obviously you're one of the most successful projects that the site has seen. So what is it that you've learned? So if you were going to do another Kickstarter.
Yeah, a lot. So I've had a ton of people ask me, like, how do I make my Kickstarter awesome? So, a good video was really key. And we were just copying the other success stories at the time. So yeah, good video is key. Good story. Certain products do better than others. I don't think that necessarily all good products will do well on Kickstarter. So I think it's more of the like quirky, cool design consumer products that do very well. You can have an extremely useful product that will do amazingly well in the market, but if it's just sort of like overly practical and doesn't have any character, I don't think it'll necessarily do well on Kickstarter.
What about the reward levels? You think that has an effect? You know, is there a way that you can create good reward levels, or at least take a stab at it?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's a pre-order sale, and so you're just pre-selling your product at a slight discount from what the retail cost will be. And but everyone does a range of rewards, just you do as you do with any product, so you can capture as much of the market as possible. So if someone wants to give $10, you give them a pencil or whatever, and if they want to give 1,000, you give them, I don't know, a handwritten note and a sweatshirt or whatever. So we kind of did that too, but the vast majority of people were just pre-ordering the tank.
I mean, that's really cool because your tanks, they're affordable, but they're not super cheap. I mean, they're a couple $100.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you had all these people actually like, yes, it's not built yet, but I want it. I'm going to give you money, and ship it to me, which is awesome. I mean, I wish all startups had that problem.
And I think it was the first live product that Kickstarter did, and we had to kind of do this weird thing where Amazon payment services wouldn't allow us to process payments for live animals, so we did like a voucher system, so customers get the voucher and then can buy the live animals. So as far as I know, it's the only live animal thing Kickstarter's ever done.
You haven't started a trend? There's no like new new aquariums or new animals going out there now?
Not that I know of. It was a tough loophole to bridge.
Which that's a really good point though, because you not only have to build this aquarium, you have to get jellyfish, and I don't imagine that there's a huge supply of jellyfish commercially available. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Right. I'm not.
That was probably less less time consuming, but a tougher nut to crack than the tank design. So what we've done is we kind of magically found a supplier, or now a whole network of suppliers of live moon jellyfish. And then we've also started to breed them.
So yeah, how does one go about finding a network of live jellyfish providers? Is that just...
it's very old-fashioned. You just have to get on the phone and start asking around. And eventually the trail started leading to suppliers who go out and catch aquarium fish, and that will then sometimes see jellyfish and catch them. And then you start to get to know the seasons and stuff like that.
So did that take longer than you thought it would, or was that...
Yeah, that was, and when I first started, I was just going out in a rubber boat catching these things out here in the bay. So it came a long way from that.
That's awesome. So, do you have? I'm assuming that you have like mentors and advisors, people who've helped you through this whole process. How did you find them? Was it friends? Was it just networking? Picking up the phone?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we have any sort of official mentors or advisors, but definitely people that we go to ask for help, for sure, all the time. Like, we needed a lot of help this whole time.
Is it, and from your experience, is it like the cooler your idea, the more likely is someone to help you, or just the fact that you're asking them and you want their help? They're happy to give it?
Yeah. I think the cool, for the mentors and advisors, or for Kickstarter? Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's everything from friends and friends of friends to just people you randomly meet I don't know. Networking is like very complicated. And like
it takes a long time too.
Yeah, exactly, that too.
So kind of in closing, what would be the the lessons learned that you'd want to tell somebody if they're thinking about a hardware startup? What are some of just like the general guidelines you could give them? Like, here are the 3 things that you should do, or that don't forget these things.
Yeah. So I would say I still think it is pretty difficult to start a hardware company. Like, it is still way more capital intensive than a software company.
Oh yeah.
Also, like, as that scales, it gets very expensive. So cash flow becomes like extremely important. I think people underestimate distribution. Like, developing the product and getting it to market is like 5% of the battle. The other 95% is distribution. And that's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. So if you take the approach of going through big retailers and setting up contracts with large companies who can sell a lot of your product, which I think ultimately everyone has to do, just the sales cycle takes a year. I mean, these are catalogs that have to vet the product and test it, and take photographs and then print it for their catalog and then test it in stores. And it's this long process of big companies that move very slowly. So you can't expect to it's not going to grow like software.
And I mean, and this is, a year after you've built the prototype, you have something manufactured and you have something ready to sell. It takes them a year from that point.
Yeah, exactly. And you can be scrappy about it and like bring prototypes to trade shows and line up contracts before you actually have the product, and ideally you should do that. But everything takes a long time.
Well, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, anytime.